The tragic case of Susan Powell, a tale of control, obsession, and family tragedy. They say no parent should ever have to bury their child. But in the case of Joshua Powell, it wasn't fate or tragedy, it was something far darker, something almost unthinkable. Police Light, Hook. Today, we unravel the harrowing story of a man whose twisted obsession cost the lives of his family, his wife, Susan Powell, and their two innocent boys, Charlie and Braden. This is a tale that goes beyond tragedy. It's a horrifying descent into control, vengeance, and murder. Buckle up, because this one will leave you shaken. It all began on December 6, 2009, in West Valley City, Utah. Susan Powell, a devoted mother and beloved member of her community, vanished into thin air. She was the last person you'd expect to leave her family behind, especially her two young sons. Her disappearance wasn't just puzzling, it was chilling. Her husband, Joshua Powell, claimed he was just as baffled as everyone else. But here's the twist: on the very night Susan disappeared, Joshua decided it was the perfect time to take their boys on a midnight camping trip. In sub-zero temperatures. Camping in a freezing desert with toddlers? Something about his story didn't sit right. When Joshua returned home the next day, Susan was gone. Her purse, phone, and belongings were still there, untouched. Her family and friends knew immediately. Susan didn't just walk away. As investigators delved into the Powell family's life, a dark and disturbing picture began to emerge. Joshua and Susan's marriage was far from the perfect union they presented to the world. Behind closed doors, it was filled with tension, control, and escalating violence. Susan had left clues behind: journal entries, videos, and even a chilling note that read, "If I die, it may not be an accident, even if it looks like one." But to understand what happened to Susan, we need to go back to Joshua's childhood. Joshua Powell wasn't your average kid. By the time he was a teenager, he was already exhibiting alarming behavior, threatening his own mother with a butcher knife, killing his sister's pets, and showing a complete lack of empathy. His father, Stephen Powell, was no better. Stephen's warped influence exposed Joshua to inappropriate content, toxic behaviors, and a complete disregard for boundaries, especially when it came to women. When Joshua married Susan in 2001, they seemed like the picture-perfect couple. But everything took a sinister turn when they moved in with Stephen. Unbeknownst to Susan, her father-in-law had developed an unhealthy obsession with her. He secretly filmed her, spied on her, and even stole her belongings. When he confessed his feelings, Susan firmly rejected him. This rejection, coupled with Joshua's controlling nature, created a powder keg of tension. December 6, 2009, Susan attended church with her family, then planned a quiet afternoon at home. By nightfall, she was gone. Joshua's story of a late-night camping trip quickly unraveled. Investigators couldn't find the campsite he described, and his alibi didn't add up. His behavior grew erratic, renting cars, driving hundreds of miles without explanation, and avoiding law enforcement. And then there were the boys. Little Charlie told investigators, "Mommy went camping with us. But she didn't come back." Braden, just 2 years old, drew a haunting picture: his family, their car, and his mother in the trunk. For years, Joshua evaded justice, but his actions painted a damning picture. He drained Susan's retirement accounts, canceled her healthcare appointments, and even moved states to cut ties with her family. Meanwhile, investigators found over 4,000 voyeuristic images on Stephen Powell's computer, solidifying his obsession with Susan. The Powell family's web of lies and dysfunction grew darker by the day. February 5, 2012, Joshua Powell's desperation reached its peak. Despite losing custody of his sons, Joshua was granted supervised visitation. On that fateful Sunday, he welcomed Charlie and Braden into his home. But as the boys walked inside, Joshua slammed the door on the social worker's face. What happened next was unthinkable. Inside, Joshua attacked his sons before setting the house ablaze. The explosion killed all three. Outside, the social worker could only watch in horror. With his final act of violence, Joshua ensured no one would ever truly know what happened to Susan. Her parents, Chuck and Judy Cox, lost not only their daughter but their beloved grandsons as well. To this day, Susan remains missing, though many believe her final resting place lies in one of Utah's remote deserts, a grim reminder of the darkness Joshua Powell brought into their lives. The Powell case is one of control, obsession, and unspeakable tragedy. But it's also a story of resilience, from Susan's family, who continue to seek justice in her name. What are your thoughts on this case? Let's talk about it in the comments. And as always, stay safe out there. True Crime Unlocked.